Hey, Melissa here. I'm so happy today to share with you a common problem that I find with independent consultants, and it's the best problem to have. And that is the worry or the concern or the paralysis that gets created when we start worrying about creating a pipeline that's too big. This happens so often. I've had several clients just even in the last couple of weeks where we're working together and they come on the call and they're like, look, this is really working. I'm generating leads for my business. My pipeline is growing. Now I'm very worried about what am I going to do when the pipeline is too big, when I've got an overflowing pipeline, when I have too much business to handle. And look, I work with independent consultants. Our goals are not to create some monstrosity of a consulting business or create some complexity for ourselves. And quite frankly, probably managing anyone. So then the question becomes, how do I handle this? How do I handle this when my lead generation process is too successful? What a fun problem to have. So I wanted to share with you today 3 steps you can use to address this situation where your pipeline is overflowing, too big, too much to handle. So that you can, because at the end of the day, if you don't address this, what's going to happen is it's going to create a limitation for you. You're going to start self-sabotaging because of course we don't want to create this overabundant sales pipeline and not know what we're going to do with it. And then our brain starts creating all of these really bad scenarios about how ultimately doing this is going to ruin our reputation. And so, of course, you're not going to want to fill your pipeline. Of course, you're going to want to be hesitant and tentative in filling your pipeline if you're worried about getting too successful at it and then it ruining your reputation. So it creates this like false ceiling for you, this false uh, limitation for you when it is unnecessary. And that's what I want to talk with you about today. So I'm going to walk you through these 3 steps of addressing what happens if you create too much business, a pipeline that's too big, so that you can have some peace of mind and feel really clear and certain that it's not a problem, and therefore not have that ceiling for yourself as a result, not have that false limitation for yourself as a result. And also, as part of this, you're going to hear me talk about how this ultimately is the fox guarding the hen house. So you're going to want to hear that part of the story. So stay tuned. Okay. As I go through this, the first thing I want to just point out to you is the way that these clients are getting this overflowing pipeline is by using what I call my RAM method. It is the method that I teach them to create leads in their consulting business. You can go download it yourself after you enter your name and email. You get it in your email box at rammethod.com. So it is a very clear, very specific, very actionable standard operating procedure you can use to fill your consulting pipeline in 26 minutes. That's what the clients have been doing. That's how their pipeline is overflowing. And that's what we're working on today, having this great problem to have, a pipeline that's too much to handle. So here are the 3 steps. The first one is, what is your specific concern? Answer this for yourself. What is your specific concern or worry when your pipeline feels like it's too big to handle? It's too much work for you to deliver against. What is your specific worry? Because really all this is a math problem, and we'll talk about addressing the math problem in a minute. But what is your specific concern? When I ask this question of my clients, we peel back the layers and we find out their specific concerns are usually reputational. Or 2 things really. Reputational. I'm worried I'm going to create this business and then get down the process with the prospective client and have to tell them I'm not able to deliver against whatever it is that we were designing. And it's going to ruin my reputation. That's the first type of concern that I usually hear. And the second is more of a trust issue. I don't trust if I create this business and I can't schedule it in a way that fits in my life. I'm going to say yes anyway, and I'm going to be stressed and overworked and overwhelmed, and ultimately do start doing things that I don't want to be doing. So those are you it's really important to understand the underlying concerns about creating too much business, because from a business perspective, this is actually not a problem. Creating more business than what you can handle is the goal of creating of generating a pipeline, and having that problem to solve, not the problem of how can I tamper down myself, how can I kind of put a governor on this in order to not generate so much business. That's not the answer to the problem. It's a math problem. So number one, really getting clear about what it is your specific concern is. And then asking yourself, secondly, the second step is, what is this even true? Is it true that I would ruin my reputation? Is it true that I would go through a process with a prospective clients and then they would be angry and disappointed that I told them that we would schedule this work in a month when my availability, permits? Is it true that the prospective client, your reputation would be ruined if you had to say to the prospective client, look, this is not, based on what we've been working on, it's looking as though I'm not going to be able to address this until next quarter. Would you prefer that, you wait for me? Would you prefer that? Is it going to work that you wait for my availability, and why that makes sense? Does it best work that I bring someone on to start tackling the lower hanging fruit and I oversee them until I'm able to come in and give you more full attention? Would it look like giving you a referral partner? There's so many different ways to address having too much business. You can increase your prices in order to regulate the demand. You can bring in those subcontractors. You can limit the scope so that your amount of involvement, direct involvement, is much more at an oversight level. And you're looking to the team to actually do the delivery and the implementation and rolling up their sleeves. There are so many different ways to address this challenge. The way that you don't want to address the challenge is by basically limiting yourself in the pipeline process to only what you think is you can handle. The reason why you don't is because, think about it, and I know this has happened to you so often. There are times where clients decide they're going to put the initiative on hold. There are times where potential clients go dark and you don't even hear from them ever again. There are times where you think something's going to close and it's going to be X amount of work and X amount of revenue, and the client ends up deciding to go with option one, which is this tiny little sliver of the amount of work that you were planning for. There are times where budgets get pulled out from under the stakeholders that you're working with. There are 1,000 different reasons why work that you think is going to come up doesn't end up coming to fruition, and why it makes the most sense for you to have a robust lead generation process, a robust pipeline process, to create as much business as you can, and to create solutions on the back end for the times where you end up booking more business than you can personally handle. That's the solution that you want to be working on, not the solution of like, how do I create governors on my pipeline so that I don't get myself into a position that is hard to manage through. So those are the first couple of steps. First of all, what is the reason why you're worried about having too much business? Like, what is the underlying concerns that you have? Then uncovering what is that true? Is that underlying concern true? Which it isn't usually, almost always it's not true, even if it feels very true. And then figuring out what truly could be the truth. Like, I could figure out a solution versus this is going to ruin my reputation. And then the third and most important part of this process is to stop thinking like the consultant who is delivering the work, and start thinking like the CEO who is running the business. This is the most important part. When you are thinking like the consultant who is delivering the work, of course, you're not going to want to have a schedule of work that feels overwhelming and hard and challenging to fit into your time budget. Of course, you're going to push back. It's just like the example here is when I was running a professional services organization at the SaaS company I helped to start. If I was the one out there responsible for selling all the work and delivering it, of course I would have, just from a human nature perspective, been very cautious and conservative in the amount of work that I was selling. But that's not how it was set up. It was set up in a way of we had a sales organization who would sell all the work, and then I had to figure out how to deliver it. It made me so much more creative and innovative of how to deliver more efficiently, how to utilize my resources in to the best of their skill sets. And that's the same thing for you. Think of yourself in two different personas. The first is the CEO who is running the business, or the CRO who is selling the business, separate from the person who's on the ground delivering it. Give yourself a little bit of space, and that's going to open up so much more creativity around how could I deliver this work? How could I become more efficient? How could I potentially get an assistant or someone to help me take off the things that are not in my zone of genius to deliver in a way that's more impactful? This is where the fox guarding the henhouse comes in. Do not let the fox who's guarding the henhouse make the decisions for your business. I might have completely ruined this analogy, but you see what I'm saying. Like, you don't let the person who's doing the work in your business decide how much work is going to come into the funnel, because that's going to create an unnecessary limitation, an unnecessary ceiling, an unnecessary governor on the amount of revenue and work and high value work that you can be doing. So that is what I have for you today. Make sure that you're in a place where you've got those two separated in your mind. In one sense, you're operating as the CEO and the CRO, and then separate that from the person who's actually the thought process of the person who's actually delivering. Obviously, we know you're the same person, but really the way you're thinking about your business, the more you can create distance from that, the more creativity and ultimately revenue and flexibility you're going to create for yourself. So go download that RAM method, rammethod.com, so you can see that exact lead generation process that my clients are using to create this problem for themselves in the first place, which is a great problem to have. I'll see you again next week.